Hello, hello, everybody. Welcome to Orgasmica, the podcast where we talk all about sexuality, sensuality, and all things healing without taboos and without restrictions. And today I have an amazing guest that I am so excited to talk to because she is such an inspiration to me. And her name is Heidi Rojas. Hello, Heidi.
Hello. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for being here. I just want to tell a quick backstory of how I ended up meeting you because I just think it is just so beautiful. It's just so many synchronicities. So we were invited to this event at this Latina magazine, and when I saw you the first time I saw you, it was like, oh my god, I know you from somewhere. And you were like, you do? And I was like, yeah, I know you like from somewhere. Like, did we get introduced by this friend or that friend? And you were like, I don't think so. Like, which I tend to do a lot. And, with people that are like in the industry of movies and whatever. And I'm just like, I'm sure that I know you. Have
Yeah.
we worked together? And it's a thing. And so I was like, okay, maybe she just like looks really like energetically familiar to me. And then I did a panel there, and then you were there to sing. And then you started singing. And I was like, my mind blown into 1,000 pieces because I was like, I know where I know her from, her music. And then I had to like go on my Instagram and like literally like find this recording that I did over the holidays 2 years ago when I was over the holidays. And that piece of music of yours inspired me so much. And I would go outside into the bay and just dance out like it was a mantra. And I recorded this mantra, and it was your song, and it was your music, and it was you. And I was just like, shut up. Oh my God. Like, yes, this is where I know you from. I just connect so much to your art and the way you do music. So I, of
That's so
course,
amazing. I love that.
wanted to connect more with you, and I wanted to be like, tell me more about yourself. And I just thought it would be a good way to doing it on a podcast because I don't know much about you, but I did it on purpose because I was like, I am very curious of how you came about this. I mean, I know a lot about you through social media, but I don't know a lot about you and how you ended up becoming who you are right now, which is so inspirational. You guys have to go and hear him music like now. Like just pause this podcast for a second, go hear music, and then come back to the podcast.
Thank you.
So how did it start for you, this journey of healing and music?
Yeah. Oh gosh. Well, thank you so much. And I loved that story because I got to, once after I met you and I experienced your panel, you experienced my performance, and then I got to go on social media and see you performing my song just like on the beach, and you were just this beautiful like mermaid. It was amazing. Singing Madre, Madre, Creada. So
I love that song.
it was really awesome. I've been singing before I could talk, and then I started writing my first song when I was 8 years old, and I wrote songs, and I graduated early from high school, and I toured around with like a gospel album and was singing at
Wow.
church, and then I went to university, and then I went to Nashville and worked at a record label, and was kind of like the Hannah Montana because they didn't know that I was actually an artist, and I was just trying to get experience at the label, and then I left that and moved to Los Angeles as an artist, and I wanted to be the Latina Lauryn Hill, and the issue was that I just didn't know who I was. I was 24 and I was writing love songs, never having really felt like I'd been in love before, and so, but that's just what everybody sings about. So I just started writing songs about love, and then I started writing songs for other artists because it was a lot easier at the time. There were a lot of artists who were kind of incognito writing for others, and so I started trying that and had some success despite always feeling like I wasn't meant exactly to be behind the scenes. But it started to get really fun, and I started to really enjoy it, especially when I became a mom almost 6 years ago. And the behind the scenes kind of vibe felt a lot better. I started signing artists with a partner of mine, and I started songwriting and vocal and performance coaching during the pandemic. And so I was always kind of behind the scenes feeling like, I think this is this isn't for me, right? I'll always be an artist in my heart. But 10 years ago, I started therapy, really just
Mhm.
unpacking and just going through all of the feelings that little Heidi
Yeah.
and that present day Heidi was going
Was it
through.
before you had kids?
Feeling it was, yeah, it was, so it was like 2014. I got, a little bit after I got married.
Mhm.
I started therapy, and my husband's been in therapy for a lot longer than I have. Just, having someone to kind of speak to who's just
Mhm.
completely objective and has a better understanding of the way that the brain was created and why we do and think the way that we do. It makes me feel
Mhm.
like I'm not crazy. I'm so normal because this is just
Mhm.
how I was made. So ultimately, I'm really just kind of all of my childhood experiences and amazing childhood, but still we all carry it's stories we told ourselves from
Always.
embarrassing experiences or from little past traumas. And so I yeah, it's been a long road of just really healing those things. When I became a mom, I really was like, okay, me voy a poner las pilas, and I want to be the best version of myself, not just for myself, but
Yes.
obviously for this little girl that I was
Right.
obsessed with. And I just wanted, like, my deepest questions were like, if she grows up to talk to herself the way that I do, like, am I okay with that? If she grows up to have these
Mm.
insecurities, am I okay with that? If she,
Mm.
and I just wanted to be the kind of person that she would look at and be like, yeah, like that's awesome. And I'm,
Yeah.
and in the way that I'm honoring my mom, the best way that, that I know how as well, because she's an
Mm.
amazing woman and taught me everything that I know. And so
Yeah. Where did you grow up?
I grew up in Chicago.
You
It's
grew up
like a
in
suburb
Chicago.
outside of the city. Um,
Where are your parents
and
from?
my parents are from, my mom was born in Guatemala to
Mhm.
Nicaraguan parents. And then my dad was born in Cuba to
Mhm.
Cuban, and then, centuries ago, Spain. But um, immigrated here in the like 60s. And
Amazing.
my
Did they
mom,
speak to you in Spanish?
yeah, so I learned everything had two names. And so I spoke a lot of Spanglish for a long time, and then
Yeah.
was able to, we obviously, when you go to school, you start to separate the two, but I'm so grateful to be fluent in Spanish. It's so much of
Yeah,
my,
it is it's so much in your art too.
it's in my art.
It's like did you always feel so connected to those roots, like the connection of the roots? Because your music has a lot of Spanglish in it.
Hmm.
And you are, I feel like, very connected to that culture. But then you grew up in Chicago, which, correct me if I'm wrong, but there's not like a big Latino community in Chicago, right? And so,
So yeah, the Midwest, especially in the 90s, was like a ghost town for um, diversity at all.
yeah,
And so I went to a high school with over 4,000 students, and most of them were white, and there were like four black kids and maybe 10 Latinos. And it was tough. It was definitely hard. And to answer your question, no, I didn't feel super connected to my culture
mm,
outside of my own home. So like we were like the music and the food and the everything in the home was definitely connected to my culture. But I knew it, and I learned at a really young age that assimilation was necessary in order to just like survive and
mm,
not get made fun of all the time. So I
yeah,
dressed and listened to the boy bands and Britney and all the
mhm,
music that I was that it was like code switching game got really really good because I was kind of just playing these two roles without actually knowing how much
yeah.
I was doing it.
Did you feel like that obviously helped you in many ways, but did you feel like that also affected you in some ways? Because it's hard to really know who your authentic self is when you
Absolutely.
have to be one thing in one community and then be the other thing. And then it's like, where am I? Who am I? Did you have that? And what age did you have that?
Totally, because it was a very subconscious thing for a really long time because I didn't really understand what it was that made me different. So I always thought it was like I wasn't pretty enough for my personality, or I didn't wear cool enough clothes. And so I was just like constantly kind of on a hamster chase trying to fit in. But I really, at
Mhm.
the end now looking back, in my 30s when I really realized like this is what's happening. I just felt like with my Latino family when I would go, they all lived in Texas. I didn't feel like I was Latina enough, right? Because I did dress differently. I did speak differently. I was definitely more assimilated because I was not around Latinos on a daily basis at all. And
Yeah.
then when
I
I would,
think that, sorry, go ahead.
no, I was just going to say when I was at school and obviously in the suburbs of Chicago, I was, I was never one of the girls. Like I was the brown girl, you know, and as much as I would try to get the Kristens and the Jessicas to like me and the blonde, like the pretty blonde girl, because I thought that if I was her best friend, that other people would accept me. It never worked out.
You know, it is just so I love that you're sharing that experience because, um, as you know, I made a movie and called Sisters. Well, now it's going to be
Hmm.
called something else, but
Oh,
yeah, we're changing the name, coming out
wow.
you soon.
Wow.
And one of the reasons we wanted to, like, our target audience is for people that felt not from here, not from there. You know
Hmm.
what I mean? It's like
Hmm.
this middle ground. And it can feel like, oh, great, you are. And somebody said at the end of our movie, I feel like I'm from here and from there. But I
Hmm.
feel like it takes a little bit because we are, as human beings, right? What we want to, part of being a human being is belonging.
Hmm.
And it's really truly feeling like I belong somewhere.
Hmm.
And then if you're, our families are so different from what you see, right? It's like, no, my families don't talk like that. My families don't eat that food. My
Hmm.
families don't dress the same. My families are culturally very different. And so you already feel othered. And then when you are with your family, you also are having experiences, a person in the United States with such a different culture,
Hmm.
different experiences. So then you don't feel that you belong within your family. And so is this middle space, right? And I feel like it does take therapy and it does take a certain amount of healing
Hmm.
for us to reach the space of like, I can be from here and from there instead. I'm not from here or from there.
Hmm.
I feel like a lot of people are floating in the middle because
Hmm.
so many are second generations here in the US. And there's not a lot of stories about being told about the people in the middle,
Hmm.
and I really wanted to tell that part of the story. And so
Yeah,
I love that you're sharing that.
it's so important. And I think it's important to talk about it and to create a safe space for that because I mean, I wrote the 2022, summer of 2022, my dad was diagnosed with cancer and my parents had to go to Houston for his treatment for 4 months. So I was here in California. They live next door and they were gone for a long time. And they are my connection to my culture is what I realized I learned back in 2022. It was like,
Wow.
I have a white husband. I've got my mixed kids. I have a lot of white friends. I didn't have a Latino community here because I moved here when I was 24. I met my husband right away. I adopted his friends into my life. Like it
Of
just
course.
felt easy and it was just, and I didn't really know who I was. So it all kind of just didn't matter. Then I realized that parents are gone and my culture is gone. And I was just like, I can't accept that. That will not be my life.
Wow.
So I started reading books like just these amazing books that I'll send you so that you can share them with
Yeah.
your community because they were so helpful in just kind of blowing the lid off of what I had always felt that what you're describing. And so I wrote this song called La Situación, and it's that feeling of ni de aquí ni de allá, like I just want to be good enough, I just want to be enough as myself. And then the pre-chorus is just proclaiming like I am the daughter of Rosa, I'm the granddaughter of Gloria, like I am all these things and that is beautiful, but sometimes I feel alone because I don't feel like I fit in these worlds. And I shared it, and for a year and a half it was like people resonating at the depths of their soul with the song. I feel, feeling
Yeah.
seen. And then, in March of this year, I received a lot of backlash because there is a community of people who feel like we, as maybe lighter skinned Latinos or as American Latino Americanos, like we should be grateful for our proximity to whiteness. Like we should just, like we don't deserve to complain. It's just nagging
Interesting.
about this idea that it's hard to not fit into a world that we get to be a part of, right? And they don't. Or,
Wow.
um, and I think that's what led me to be 30 something, 30 34, 35, and not have actually unpacked it or really, felt safe, like sharing that de aquí y también de allá, feeling um, because of that, like, well, you should
Yeah.
just be grateful, kind of an attitude.
Yeah, it's such a well, the internet, first off, is just such a tricky place. And I love how you deal with hate on the internet. I love it because it's just like you come at it with like, I'm gonna then give you a song about it. It's like
Yes,
I just freaking like love that,
thank you.
how you deal with it. And I mean, I understand why people listen, like specifically, I mean, your parents are from Guatemala and it's sort of similar, but in Mexico, we're what we call malinchistas.
Mm.
We are very that, which is, anything is better somewhere else. Like if it's coming from the US, it's better than if it's coming from, Mexico. So there is that sense of like, and a lot of people do leave for the American dream. And
Mm-hmm.
I understand that there's a certain type of privilege of
Mm-hmm.
being here. I'm the only one in my family that is here. And I have privilege on top of privilege because I have light skin and light eyes. And I
Mm-hmm.
am very aware of my
Totally.
privilege as a Latina,
Same.
but I did also fight with being wanting to speak my language and roles of a Mexicana, and people were like, "You cannot, you are not Mexican enough, like you don't look Mexican enough."
Right.
And I understand what it's come from, and I need to be more representation of people of color all around.
Mm-hmm.
But we cannot just focus on one experience. It's like your experience and the people that feel not from here, not from there, and feel lost a little bit in their identity. They also need to be validated in their human
Mm-hmm.
experience, which is what you do and what we do with art
Mm-hmm.
is validating people in their human experience and make you not feel alone
Mm-hmm.
because like you said, it can be shame
Mm-hmm.
around, well, shit, I should just be grateful,
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, yeah, but you can still be human and have feelings of like not belonging and feeling awkward and feeling
Mm-hmm.
weird and feeling like I can't be here and be my fully authentic self, right?
Totally.
And that is an experience that unless you live it, it is really hard for people to understand it.
Mm-hmm.
And so, but there's also many people that live it,
Mm-hmm.
and a lot
Yeah.
of them live it in silence.
And that's the thing is that I chose to heal out loud because I thought if I can create a safe place for other people, because what I really want to do with my platform is speak on behalf of all, like I want to use my privilege to help the people who don't have as much
Mhm,
of a voice or who are not being heard. And the only
mhm,
way I can do that authentically is to heal the parts of myself that don't feel like I'm good enough to do that or that I'm not, and so the healing was essential in order for me to reach the potential of how I can help my community um, and my people. And so it's really necessary. And I think it exposes. I think if we can't hold space for someone else's story, someone else's experience, I think it's more exposes more the limitations that we've put on ourselves. Because
mhm,
if you feel comfortable being able to share your story, you can hold
mhm,
space for someone else's, whether it's like
mhm.
way less intense than yours or way more intense. There's no metric system for who gets to share or who gets to heal out loud or not. It was an important lesson, but um, it also highlights how necessary that conversation is and how
Oh yeah.
relevant it still is, right? Because
Mhm,
if
mhm.
if people are on both sides of it, love and hate on both sides, like it's important. It's
Yeah.
still relevant. So
And honestly, it's more also a world view because the more we are traveling and, creating lives in other countries and having kids in other cultures with other people from other cultures, for me, like we were very specific, like, no, we're creating this movie for the like the Latino community in the US.
mhm.
But when we presented this movie in London, we were really shocked on how impactful it was for them
Wow.
because of course they also have a lot of migration inside
Mhm.
of their culture, and
Mhm.
so you don't have to be, Mexican American or Latino and living in the US to
Mhm.
experience an experience of feeling like I just don't feel like I fit somewhere, and And it is a very interesting, I feel like that opened my eyes to be like, oh no, this is a world view that a
Mm-hmm.
lot of people are having. And I think more now than ever that we're moving to other places so quickly and so
Mm-hmm.
easier because it has more of a, we have more access.
Mm-hmm.
And we have also the access of social media that we can see and hear people that are experiencing the same thing as us. And so
Mm-hmm.
we feel less alone in that experience. I want to
Absolutely.
talk about so language, how important language is, and when did you said that, you know, you grew up, your parents spoke to you in Spanish.
Mm-hmm.
Were you always very comfortable speaking Spanish? Were you like trying to avoid it? Were you, because I know a lot of my friends that have kids, there's a point where the kid doesn't want to speak to them in Spanish anymore.
Mm-hmm.
They will hear their parents speaking in Spanish
Mm-hmm.
and they will refuse to talk back in Spanish.
Mm-hmm.
And then later in life, they were like,
Regret.
yeah, the regret, regret of like, why didn't I?
Totally.
Because it gives you something, you know, and it's not only because it gives you an upper hand at work, which yes, it does. You know, being bilingual or trilingual, it's a great thing,
Mm-hmm.
but also the connection to language and ourselves within ourselves, like you were saying in the song that you were mentioning about. I'm the daughter of this, I'm the grandmother of this, and we have that inside of us,
Mm-hmm.
right? And
Mm-hmm.
so, what is your connection to, and how has been your connection with Spanish?
Oh my gosh, yeah. So my grandparents only spoke Spanish. So, and they would come visit us and stay for months. And so there was a lot of, well, si no hablas en español, you're not going to get understood. You're just not going to have be
Mm.
able to communicate. And my grandparents were like my favorite people. So I always spoke Spanish. I definitely in certain circles you kind of I'm really good like at gauging how much of me like I'm adaptable, so like how much of me can
Mm.
people handle, or how much of me do I am I safe sharing, right? And so like if I
Mhm.
felt like I was gonna experience some judgment on my Spanish, or because I'm definitely more eloquent in English, that's just the truth.
Okay.
I think in
Mhm.
English for the most part, but I've my relationship with Spanish is so intense that today, my daughter's kindergarten, they have Spanish 101 like fiesta. It's like a cute little after school program. And
Mhm.
so I set 4 alarms and I was there at 11:59 because at noon they opened up 14 spots for this class, after school class. And I was like, if she doesn't get in, I'm gonna just like cry and lose my mind, because I've already cried, I've already stressed so much about she's fluent and understands, but the speaking isn't coming together.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
as it's coming, but it's not like a
Mhm.
natural thing. So it's so important to me that she speak Spanish and that she be proud of her heritage, especially because
Yeah.
she's only half Latina, that it's I got one of the 14 spots, thank God.
Amazing.
But it was like 12, bing, put it in cart. Like I had my credit card information already in file. Like it
Ready.
was the
All
most
of it ready.
important thing today, because I want, to, and it's, other examples are like my name is Heidi, right? My parents
Mhm.
had me in the 80s when it was not as safe to call me something, more culturally
Maria.
appropriate. Exactly.
Yeah.
It was very strategic, and Kevin is a beautiful name, but my brother's name is Kevin, and they're both really great
Mhm.
names, but they don't represent our culture. And so
Mhm.
I corrected, said, I'm going to take back our culture with my children, and I have Luna and Santiago. And that is
Mhm.
something that I wanted them to have, regardless of what last name they take on at any point in their life. They will always
Yeah.
be clearly like rooted in their heritage,
Their
in
language.
their language. And so
Yeah.
Spanish is so important to me. I think what because I was writing mainstream pop music for different artists.
Mhm.
Most of my
Mhm.
success was in the UK, kind of like a soul pop kind of style. And obviously, I was always writing in English. So something
Mhm.
that separated and that felt so natural to me when I started writing songs in 2022, when my dad was in treatment and I was really going through like all of this, really like putting my Latinidad all on the table and really understanding like, whoa, that was crazy how this happened and that, and like the way that I felt as I transitioned even into from Baylor University, which is like a really Baptist university in Texas, where everybody called me Mexican because that's all that they thought existed, to
Mhm.
and they were also trying to make a point that I don't matter enough to understand where I'm actually from in Latin America, right?
Right.
You're all from
Right.
Mexico, which they don't do for people in Europe, right? They know
Yeah.
the French lady, they know the
They do.
the people from
They can.
Spain,
Yeah.
or it's not that complicated.
Mhm.
We know they know how to figure it out, but it was a point they were trying to make. And then when I moved to Nashville, I was the exotic. Ooh, I'm exotic and petting my hair and how thick it is, and but still not can't still can't sit with us. And
Yeah.
so as I was unpacking that and starting to write songs, really working through some postpartum depression, some you know just how my body and my mind and my entire DNA changed with motherhood, the most important part of my songwriting at that time and what made it different than anything I'd written before was the Spanglish, was that I was using
Mhm.
it. Almost made me feel like, okay, this is who I am, this is where my art was not, it wasn't clicking before because I wasn't using all of who I am,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
so when I started writing songs in Spanglish, or some of them are all English, all Spanish. I have a children's
Mhm.
book coming out with Con Todo Press in September, and
That's
it's
amazing.
one of my songs that I wrote that I'll release then at the same time, and it's all in English, all in Spanish. There's this lullaby that went super viral that's for my kids, and I
I
translated
love
it.
that lullaby
Thank
too.
you.
Yes.
About big
So
feelings,
beautiful.
right? About how feelings are superpowers.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
translated it. And honestly, I like singing it, and I feel most connected to my ancestors and to my voice when I sing it in Spanish.
Yes.
It's
What do you think it
beautiful.
does, like music in a healing space, right? Because I feel like, honestly, I mean, obviously, music is like so important in I think everybody's life, right? It's just
Hmm.
part of our culture, in any culture, like how, we connect, how everything has a lot to do with music, memories, childhood, and everything, right?
Hmm.
But then there is what people called, healing music or música medicina,
Hmm.
in different senses. That it's not, we're not only talking about heartbreaks or like, pop music that just says, or right now, listen, love me some reggaeton when the place is, but we're not only, mueve tu culo, mija, we're not just like, we're not just talking about shaking the fucking ass or whatever. We're
Exactly.
actually talking about some deep stuff.
Hmm.
And a teacher, a mentor of mine said to me once, is like, beware of the music that you listen over and over again
Hmm.
because they're mantras
Hmm.
that you're speaking to yourself. And so if you're only singing things about being brokenhearted and be just like, which there's a moment and place for sure, because again, you don't feel alone when you're going through those things, when you find those things, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
But then there's a moment where it's like, what is it that you're listening on a day to day? Like, what is it that you're watching on a day to day? Because those are things that when we're hearing music and when we're watching something,
Hmm.
we're in a space of hypnosis in a
Hmm.
sense,
Hmm.
and it enters our brain and it enters our psychosis in a very different way.
Hmm.
So when did you decide from going, poppy over here, writing
Hmm.
songs from other artists that are about that and pop and more catchy songs, to, not that your songs are not catchy, for sure they are, but
Hmm.
to more depth into like almost a prayer, like it feels like prayers in your
Hmm.
song? And what happened that you decided to enter that space?
Yeah, well, thank you. And you said it so eloquently about the how lyrics. I agree with everything that you said about how lyrics are, and scientifically, they've been able to show just what it does to our brains, whether
Hmm.
we're conscious of the lyrics actually entering or not. They're impacting us for sure in a positive or negative ways. And so I think what happened for me was, and I think if you were to listen to the music that I have that has come out commercially that I've written,
Hmm.
I think there would
Hmm.
be like a really common thread of empowerment. And
Mm.
it's always been my goal to make positive music. There was one song that I did with uh, an artist featuring Pitbull that
Yeah.
was a little bit of culo culo.
Of course, of course.
But
Listen, there's also a
opinionated
place for that.
Pitbull.
Yes.
It was like, I don't know, it was something inappropriate. And but it was still fun, and I still played it for my dad. It's not like I was embarrassed of it. But it was for me becoming, I'm a millennial woman in my 30s with children.
Mhm.
I don't relate to the hearts, broken-hearted songs. I don't relate to those angsty kind of teenage,
Mhm.
like so much of what's out there, like you said, is um, is about bodies um, and sex and stuff. And so for me, I just wanted to hear music that it made me feel like I was mothering well, like I was not alone, like I felt empowerment and community and mantras. Truly, like it was just every
Mhm.
lyric that I write in a song, I can give you, like every line, I can give you a backstory of why I wrote it and
Mm.
why,
Mhm.
what it means to me, what I was going through. Like,
It feels like that. It feels
you
very
know,
intentional. Mhm.
it is. It's just, it's every word is super intentional because they are my prayers. They are my feelings. They are
Mm.
just me like healing out loud, like sharing what I've been going through and the thoughts that go through my head and how I can put them into a song. And then I can, like, from the writing process, conceptualizing, and then to the recording process, and then to shooting a photo shoot for the cover, and then putting it out and then performing it and having people hear the song in person or on social media. All of it is part of my healing journey, and all of it makes me feel like I'm honoring everything that little Heidi went through. And for me, I mean, I think is what music is all about, is
Yeah.
is like it is a healing agent that literally, like, you can pack in years of therapy into a 3-minute song because you're making people feel in deep ways with the music and the lyrics, melody. When it all comes together and it makes somebody
Amen.
feel seen, it's like the most magical thing for me. And so to create that safe space for people, especially for women and their babies, like, has been the most incredible dream.
It is amazing. It is amazing what you do with that. And like what I also want to know, I know we have like 5 more minutes, but I really want to know what like your experience as a woman, with kids, that motherhood changed how you were writing, like you said,
Hmm.
but how and do you, because you also have a beautiful voice and you're also used to singing. But do you feel like music and writing music, it's also a therapeutic thing that other people and other women can do to express themselves? Because a lot of people go, I'm not a writer or I'm not a singer.
Hmm.
But what would you say to people that like I feel really connected to music,
Hmm.
but they're like, but how can we use that as in a therapeutic way? It doesn't mean that we're gonna win, Grammys, but
Hmm.
can we use music and can we use poetry together in a way of healing, the way it seems that you do in every lyric of yours?
Mm. Absolutely. And I've actually thought about, like, I would love to do workshops. I would love to help moms write lullabies for their own children because it's such a beautiful way to connect with them. And so, yeah, I think the way that, to answer your first question of like how motherhood changed me aside from my writing, is like it made me more intentional in my relationships, I mean, in every single way. And part of why I decided to share my music instead of just like, it's a beautiful way for me to heal just personally, and for me to connect with
Hmm.
my kids. But
Hmm.
the reason why I shared it with the world, quite outside of my comfort zone, as much as I might look like I'm comfortable, I'm an
Hmm.
introvert that has spurts of extroverted
Hmm.
tendencies.
Hmm. I
And
know many of
so
those.
yeah, it's like I can be super social for a couple hours and then I need to like
Hmm.
go and just, and so but I put my music out there because I was seeking community. I was seeking women like me. I was seeking other Latinas, other moms, other women who were on a healing journey. And that was my greatest offering to kind of like attract them, was just like, if you like my music, if you like my songs, we should be friends. And so I've found, like you, so many amazing women who are in alignment with my life goals and process. And so I'm so grateful to these songs that for helping me connect with like a community of people. And I think that through that, I would love to expand the way that I'm a resource to them. And I would love to do things like helping other women, um, through, like you said, poetry, through songwriting, just heal and process a lot of things. I
Yeah.
think when we put it out on paper, it's so important. Like the taking in and reading and receiving is really important, but to look at ourselves all as artists, we are
Yeah.
all art makers, we're all
We're all
creators.
creatives. Yeah.
Like it's, I don't know, it can be really liberating to just like exercise that and see like, oh yeah,
Yeah.
I can,
I can create,
can create.
and create. Yeah. And creating is just such a, it's a human experience, honestly. And I think we have divided. I was like, are you an artist? If you're not an artist, but another mentor of mine would say everybody is creative. You just find an outlet and just be creative.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to win an award for, that whatever it is that you're doing in order
Mm-hmm.
for you to have the validation of creativity, because creativity is so healing.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like music is so healing, and writing your thoughts and your feelings, it's so healing in a way that, you composed a piece and all of a sudden you're like, there's a healing sense to it, and then it makes you also feel so community, like you said, it's like a sense of community.
Mm-hmm.
So thank you for sharing that, and I do hope
Mm-hmm.
that you create something. I'll sign up for that too, because
Yes,
I
that'd
love
be really
to
fun.
do write poetry. I do write, but I've never written a song, and I love using my voice.
Mm-hmm.
And many things of like, no, you can't sing, you're not so. And that is, I was in a singing circle for a long time, and it was a very beautiful experience because I get to just explore my voice the way my voice is with no expectations, and so I really hope that you do that, because I would love to sing that. And then my last question for you that I ask all my
Yes.
guests: what is an orgasmic life for you?
Oh my gosh. I think I'm honestly, I think I'm living it. I think it feels so liberating to like I'm raising my babies. I have a beautiful relationship with my husband, and my parents live 10 feet away, and
Mm,
we're in this little compound just nurturing the next generation, our legacy. And then I'm having these like song babies all the time. And I feel like I'm connected to little Heidi in a way that is so deep and so um, powerful. I feel like I am living an orgasmic life because I'm also really excited about the future, and I'm
mm,
really open hearted to what it can offer and I can
mm.
manifest now. I believe so greatly, like I'm expanding my capacity to say, I want to do this and I want to do that, because some of the things that I thought were crazy last year happened or are
Mhm,
happening. And so
mhm.
now I'm like, tengo que tener más cuero, hasta más, like
Yes,
push it
yes,
even more,
expansion,
more
expansion. I
expansion.
love that.
Yeah. And so I
Yeah.
think an orgasmic life is a life of expansion. When you think about like we're about to have a baby, the way that my body expanded to have two,
Mhm,
not natural
mhm,
as in no epidural, but natural as in vaginal births. Like
mhm,
it was that tension. It was that like everything that I went through, all of really painful growth, all of the really hard experiences that I had, like that was the expansion for this rebirth. And
mhm,
I feel like I'm
mm.
experiencing kind of a rebirth of
Beautiful.
me. I am mother, I am woman, I am wife, I am creator, I am all of these things, right? And I'm
Mhm, mhm.
owning and claiming them all and saying, actually, no, you can't take them away from me. You can't
Yeah.
make me feel less. I come
Amen.
from a long line of generations of people who fought and escaped wars and
Mhm,
revolutions, and there's nothing I can't do because of
mhm,
the sacrifices that they made for me to be here and conquer
mhm.
these dragons, right? So I think
You
I'm
are living it.
living
I
it.
love it. And this is a beautiful explanation. Yes, orgasmic being expansive. And
Hmm.
what I heard is expansive in community and awareness and creation,
Hmm.
and living the experience of who you are, and your authentic way, no matter what fears come through, you still push through because you can create from whatever. So that is
From
a
love,
beautiful
from
answer.
limitless love. Yeah, so much
Limitless
love.
love. It is just so beautiful. Thank you so much, Heidi, for being in the podcast. I really
Thank
appreciate your
you.
medicine, your beautiful contribution to the world that is so needed. And thank you for creating and keep creating, please, for all of us
Thank you. Thank you so
Spanglish
much.
speaking people.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. I will.
Thank you
Thank
so,
you.
so much. And I'll see you. Please leave everybody with your social media. What is your social media?
Yes, Heidi Rojas, Heidi HeidiRojas music. So Heidi Rojas music. You can find me
Perfect.
on YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, all of the above. And
Amazing.
please reach out.
Go.
Thank you so much.
Please reach out and go find her now. And as you guys know, you can always leave your question, comments, or anything on this podcast. And you can reach out to me at sacred_alchemia. And I'll see you guys next week. Thank you so much.